Hey, hi, how are you? My name's Phil, and welcome back to another Magic video. Today we're talking about a deck that I think I've finally gotten together in a way that I enjoy quite a bit. And that is something that I've been running into fairly frequently as I painfully and slowly climb the ladder this season because I've just been having a bad time. But that's beside the point. What I'm talking about is Grixis Reanimator. I've been having a lot of fun with this. It is insanely enjoyable, and there are lots of ways to play it. This is the one that I've found works the best for me. It includes a small amount of board wipes, a lot of card draw and discard, but a little more interaction than some of the other versions that I've run into. Quite a few of them that I've tried out have either run not enough interaction, or just too many big bomb drops. As you can see, we have a sideboard here of like extra bomb drops and planeswalkers for maybe a little more interaction if you want, as well as a Return Upon the Tide because we actually only have one reanimation spell in the deck in Graveyard Shift. It's very powerful. It works very well. But a lot of decks I saw were running 8 reanimator spells, and while yes, you do want to draw reanimators in this deck, it doesn't really let you draw what you need when you need it. What do I mean by that? I mean that this is a pretty mid-range heavy meta right now, meaning that you want to get stuff out on the field and force your opponent to play their removal on it so that your bombs can land. That's my interpretation of how the meta kind of lands out right now. There's lots of removal running around and lots of big board presences, which is why we have so much removal. And you might be like, that's really only 4 removal spells? Yes, but they're all very, very good at what they do. Bloodchief's Thirst targets small things early on in the game and targets planeswalkers once you can ramp yourself up to 4 mana. Power Word Kill will hit lots of stuff along the way and is an instant. You could also replace it with Infernal Grasp, but that's just like a classic dealer's choice. I find Power Word Kill to be a bit more consistent because not a lot of dragons and angels are running around. And if there are dragons and angels running around, you have bigger problems. Especially because the angel decks, you typically just run Shadow's Verdict. Most of the angel decks are running a lot of copies of Giada, 2-drop. I forgot the name of the other angel. You'll have to forgive me. We're doing this live. So, the Angels deck runs lots of copies of Giada, 2-drop, Youthful Valkyrie, 2-drop, Inspiring Overseer, 3-drop, and Righteous Valkyrie, 3-drop. Shadow's Verdict hits all of those. Like, every single one of those. As well as, you know, mono-white weenies, where they're just trying to play a bunch of tiny little things at you. Shadow's Verdict hits all of that. Someone's trying to play Naya Runes into you, Shadow's Verdict hits all of that. And hits the graveyard. You might, honestly, I'd say maybe run 2 copies of this with the way that the aggro meta runs out right now. But at the same time, it only hits 3-drops or smaller, so viewer discretion advised. Burn Down the House. It's just a classic. If nothing else, you can use it to summon 3 1/1 devil tokens that will pressure your opponent out a little bit. 5 damage to the board's okay. It's much better into someone trying to play like mono white than someone trying to play, say, Rakdos Sacrifice. But it's still pretty valuable. Meathug Massacre. Do I need to say anything? I don't think I do. As for our drawn and discard, Maestro's Charm gets its own category because it's like 3 cards in one, but let's talk about draw and discard first. Tainted Indulgence, amazing. You have so many different mana values in this deck that it'll very, very quickly get to its 5 out of 5 status and really be able to pop off. Besides, early on, it's really good for discarding any of these creatures. You might notice we don't have very many, that's why the sideboard is what it is. I've been toying with what I want to include in it, and I just kind of threw everything into the sideboard that I've been considering throwing in there. I don't own Titan of Industry, and if you don't know what Titan of Industry is, Titan of Ind, gotta open up the green. As you can see, I don't own it. Titan of Industry is an amazing reanimation target. You don't run any green in this deck, but it doesn't matter because you can also play it with any of the treasures you make from some of the cards we'll get to in a second. But it's just a great reanimation target. It makes a bunch of stuff when it comes back onto the board. I just don't own it, so I can't include it. It won't be in the deck listing, but this is just kind of your warning. Titan is good. Yeah, Tainted Indulgence, great for card draw later on, really good for discard early on. Speaking of card draw and discard, as well as mana production, as well as duping your massive bomb drops that you're going to reanimate, I think Fable of the Mirror Breaker is a mainstay for Reanimator decks right now, and I think it is a very hard card to replace. You get a Void Presence that makes you treasures on a 3-drop, which is really nice. You get to discard up to 2 cards that you want to reanimate on the second turn afterwards, which is just really nice. Then you get Kiki Jiki, who everyone wants to play removal on because they don't want you duping your shamans or your big reanimation targets. It's just really good. I've been including Prismari Command. I like being able to deal with small targets on the 3-drop. Anything that has 2 toughness I can take care of with Prismari Command, but also it has destroying artifacts, creating treasure tokens, draw and discard. It's just a pretty good overall thing for this deck. I personally love to include it, but it's probably if you don't have it, you don't have it, and it's fine. Big Score, also Unexpected Windfall. They're interchangeable. This one just only requires 1 red, and since you're kind of tricoloring, it's probably better to run just this because it only requires 1 red. Discard, hit reanimation target, draw 2 cards, make 2 tokens, very powerful thing. Maestro's Charm, absolute mainstay for Grixis Reanimator right now. You look at the top 5, put 1 in hand, throw the rest away. Hey, what happens if you hit like 3 bomb drops? Reanimation. It also does 5 damage, which is just nice. It can take out stuff like anything really. And it hits planeswalkers, or you can just use it to drain your opponent with a life, which kind of ties into Meathook working out. It's just a pretty versatile card. It's very useful. All the charms are very useful, but I think Maestro's is just perfect for reanimation. Graveyard Shift is the mainstay of this deck. You need 4 copies, straight up. If you're not running 4 copies of Graveyard Shift in the Reanimator deck right now, I think you are kind of trolling. You need 5 different mana values in your graveyard to get it to have flash, but honestly, you will have 5 different mana values in your graveyard between all these different cost removal spells, all these different cost draw and discard spells. I mean, look at the deck list. That's a 1. If you discard a land, that's a different one. Power Word kills a 2, so that's a different mana value. Maestro's Charm is 3, so different mana value, as is Fable Breaker, as is Prismari, and then 4 on Big Score. So much stuff with so many different mana values that it's very easy to get Graveyard Shift to its full value, and then you can flash it, which means you can flash in stuff like Junji the Midnight Sky, Evelyn the Covetous, All-Seeing Arbiter, Olivia Crimson Bride, Jin Gitax's Progress Tyrant, Talks with the Corrosive, or just Lord Xander the Collector. These are all amazing bomb drops to bring back in. I do include 2 Olivias. You could probably put her down to 1, but I like to have a better chance of drawing her because she can be used to pull back any of the creatures by just attacking with them. Evelyn is mostly included just because that way you have a backup if you have Olivia on field. Plus, Olivia and Evelyn kind of synergize pretty well together. They can keep bringing each other, well, Olivia can keep bringing Evelyn back if people are removing it because you're stealing their cards. Evelyn can keep creatures on the field from Olivia's negative effect of if you don't control a legendary vampire, your reanimated target gets exiled. Xander also plays into that as well. It all kind of comes together. But the big idea is, while those 3 are the vampires that tie together, they're just really powerful bomb drops anyways. You might be surprised to see Junji in here. I just think he's a surprisingly good 5-drop, just straight up. He's a pretty decent reanimation target, because if he keeps dying and coming back, you can keep draining your opponent's hand and life points, or you can put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard, not yours, a graveyard on the battlefield under your control, and you lose 2 life. Hey, we're playing a Reanimator deck. You know what's good? Putting non-dragon creatures on the graveyard. Hey, is Junji the only dragon creature in the deck? Yes. Yes, he is. He works very well in Grixis here. Evelyn, she has a mile of text. Read the card yourself if you don't own her, know how you look, or know how she works. The bottom line, she yoinks cards, can play them for converted mana costs for any mana colors. Pretty powerful thing. All-Seeing Arbiter is pretty okay. I've heard a lot of good things about him. I haven't seen much success with him myself, but if nothing else, they're a flying 5/4. He does allow you to self-middle a little bit. He's probably better if you're running more creatures than I run in my version of the deck. My version of this deck is pretty interaction heavy, a lot less creature heavy. But he does allow you to also tap down your opponent's creatures with the -X/-0 until the end of their next turn, which is pretty powerful. Considering he's a 5/4, he will be very hard to take out if he can just keep doing that. Olivia, she brings cards back from the graveyard when you attack. Jin-Gitaxias doubles spells, doubles artifacts, or counters spells and counters artifacts. He's just a hassle for anyone to remove, but because of that, he's just good to have on field. The real way to deal with him is enchantments like Meat Hook Massacre, and you're already running a Meat Hook of your own, so you're typically already having negated your opponents by the time they get to a 5/5 Meat Hook. Toxrill, he's just a problem. He destroys your opponent's creatures by tapping them down with -1/-1 twice per turn. Once on your phase, once on your opponent's phase. Just a big hassle. You can also sack stuff for card draw, so you can get to your removal a bit better if you don't have it at the moment. Xander, he makes your opponent drop their hand, he makes them mill their library when he attacks, and when he dies, your opponent has to sacrifice half the non-land permanents. It does say dies, that means if he gets exiled, you don't have to deal with the effect. Just noted. My mana base is kind of ass. I don't have all the lands that I need to make this deck work the best. This is what I have had to make do with. You'll see it in the deck listing. It's not great. Fix the mana base as needed. A sideboard, it's just extra things you can include. Kaido Suzuki, draw engine, / creature engine, / you can use them to pull a black card out of your library. Corpse Explosion can be good for doing massive damage to the board. You have all of these 7 mana cards. You can exile them and hit the board for 7. It can be pretty useful. Lolth is great for making board presence. Return Upon the Tide is just a reanimation spell. Kayari, the Swirling Sky, can help you get back instants and sorceries, or return any number of target things to your opponent's hand. If your opponent's running like a treasure creation deck, Kayari is really good, because treasures are actually 0 CMC, converted mana cost things, meaning you can bounce all their treasures when it dies. Hullbreaker is Hullbreaker. I don't know if I need to go into it. Leer doesn't really make the list because there's no reason to play Leer. Like, you don't really need to get back any of your instants or sorceries from your graveyard, but asterisk, if you like Leer, if you want to build your deck around him, go for it. This is just what I've been doing, what I've been having fun with. Edit it as you wish. This is just a starting point. There's a lot of versions of this deck going around. This is just the one that I've been having fun with. If you've enjoyed it this much, this has been kind of long, but this deck requires a lot of talking because there's so many options in it. It is a very wide deck, even if it is not very deep in terms of what it does. Idea: throw these things in the graveyard, bring them back with Graveyard Shift, draw a bunch of cards. Deck is very straightforward, but the things the cards do and why I chose what I did is a little more complex. But either way, thanks for now watching. You're heckin' cool. I appreciate you, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Oh, and I've started actually being smart and putting deck lists down in the video description. You're welcome, random commenters who've asked for that, all like 2 of you. Like it if you liked it and you want to see more. Subscribe if you really want to see more. Hope to catch you in the next one. Bye, everybody.